The Fed is not expected to move rates today, but the pressure on it is growing. The Federal Reserve sets rates this Wednesday. It is expected to keep them at between 4.25% and 4.5%, although President Trump has made it repeatedly clear he wants to see them much lower. A lot of the key data that will push policymakers to make a move is out later in the week, including crucial US jobs numbers. Hetal Mehta is chief economist at St James's Place. Hetal, the US has struck some key trade deals in the last week or so, but are policymakers still waiting to see what impact those tariffs make?
Yes, we've only started to see the tentative impact of inflation come through in last month's data, and we know that even with the trade deals, the effective tariff rate is going to keep going up. Even the 15% tariff rate with the EU is a significant jump from where we were previously, and that's going to start coming through in the coming months, which does obviously make it very difficult for the Fed to cut rates when inflation is going to be moving higher.
Is a split developing, though, do you think, between those policymakers who want to keep watching and waiting and those who would cut faster?
So I think so. The last dot plot certainly showed there was a bit of a bifurcation in terms of the FOMC members. I think it's natural that when you have this kind of trade-off of higher inflation but weaker growth, that different people put emphasis on different aspects of that dilemma. But I do think that we need to see more weakening in the economy, particularly the labour market, if we kind of convince more of the FOMC members that now is the time to start cutting rates.
President Trump's made it clear he wants to see rates much lower. How worried should the market be about political pressure on the Fed?
So I think it's a theme that comes up repeatedly, not just for the Fed but other central banks. It is something that markets should be attuned to, but it's worth remembering that the Fed is a significant number of people who are voting. One individual probably won't be the only swing factor here, but the Fed chair is very important in particular, and we know that Jerome Powell's term will be up for renewal, coming to an end early next year. And it's quite possible some of the FOMC members are talking more dovishly in order to line themselves up for that role, or are putting more emphasis on the kind of weaker data.
There is, as you said, a pile of economic data out towards the end of this week, including those crucial US jobs numbers. How well do you think the US labour market is holding up?
It's actually been pretty resilient. We have seen a slowdown in terms of payrolls, but I also think we are in a kind of better balance in terms of that supply and demand of labour, because we've seen vacancies come down, but we've also seen, for example, through immigration, the supply of labour slow. So we don't need to have payrolls printing in excess of 250,000 in order to keep the jobs market in balance. We've seen that cool down, but we are at, I think, a crucial point where vacancies have come down, and by historical precedent, a further reduction in vacancies would normally be associated with the unemployment rate picking up. And so that's something I think is going to be a key factor to watch over the next few months.
Given those unemployment numbers, where would you put a rate cut? September, perhaps, or not until December?
It's difficult to say. September might be still difficult given the inflation impulse that's coming through, and whether we've seen enough evidence of the labour market cooling. But certainly that's what the FOMC seem to be guiding us towards, and that's what markets currently seem to be comfortable with.
That was Hetal Mehta of St James's Place. Don't forget you can watch more videos on Reuters.com.